Hey there, Nation, and welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming. I am Commander Cheapskate, and we are back in an episode of Weight of the Underhive. This series is dedicated to helping brand new players to Necromunda build their starting rosters and learn more about the game mechanics of their favorite gangs. And on to this episode, we'll be discussing a corpse grinder cult in the Aranthian Succession. We'll discuss the positive and negative aspects of playing in the Aranthian Succession, the impact that the campaign setting has on corpse grinder cults, discuss alliances, brutes, hangers on, as well as hired guns, and we will provide you a 2,400 point starting roster that you can use in your very first campaign. At the same time, we'll also talk about how you could use this gang on the tabletop, discussing tabletop tactics, and also to help you out develop this gang as the campaign develops. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get this video on a roll. Because this video will be a little bit more of a deeper dive, I will put timestamps in the description box down below, so that way you can click and navigate to the part that appeals to you the most. So why should you play the corpse grinder cults? Because psychologically you want to affect your enemies. You want to dominate in close combat. You especially want to one-shot kill enemy vehicles in close combat and do the Iron Man walk away when you do it. And of course, where is the beef? That's the reason why you want to play a corpse grinder cult. So with that being said, let's talk about the positives and negatives of playing in the Aranthian Succession. So up first, let's talk about the positives. So playing in the Aranthian Succession, you get anywhere between 2,000 to 2,400 starting credits to create your gang. If you're staying in the Underhive, you only get 2,000 credits, but if you plan on venturing out to the Ash Waste, you get 2,400, and you can spend those 400 credits on mounted fighters as well as on vehicles. Now the nice thing about this larger point cost is that you can get a lot more options for your gangs. Now unfortunately, a lot of new players especially believe that they actually have to take a 1,000 point gang and then simply double the number of fighters that they need in that gang. But that's actually an incorrect assumption to make on this. Instead of going for a quantity build like having 20 or 25 different fighters, just focus on the normal number of fighters you would normally have in a gang and just fully equip them to deal with whatever situation they might run into. You can buy your gangers better weapons, better equipment, better war gear, esoteric type of equipment that you would never usually get, like exotic beasts, things of that nature. So that way you can create a whole variety of builds with really powerful lists with a lot of equipment that you can take on any kind of challenge that might come your way. Now at the same time, there are also some negative aspects of playing in the Aranthian Succession, and unfortunately for you guys who play corpse grinder cults, you're going to actually get hit twice with this one, and that is the balance bandwagon. First of all, you are playing a corpse grinder cult, so because you're going to hear all kinds of whiny, weak players who are going to be complaining all the time that you're playing a corpse grinder cult. Oh, you have to pass willpower tests to fight corpse grinder cults. Oh, they're so powerful. Oh, they destroy in close combat. Oh, this, oh, that. They'll find a million and one reasons to complain about why they're losing to corpse grinder cults. And instead of actually finding creative solutions to try to feature on the tabletop, they just like to say that your gang is overpowered and unbalanced and give every other excuse except the fact that they're just really bad players. So if you do run into those kind of immature people when it comes to you playing a corpse grinder cult, tell them to get a life and either play, stop whining, or find some creative solution to defeat you. It's just that simple. After all, every single corpse grinder cult player out there knows that your gang is not invincible. That is all. You have a significant handicap as a corpse grinder cult gang, and because you maximize your strengths and minimize your weaknesses, your opponents just can't handle it in most cases. Another thing you also got to worry about with the balance bandwagon as well is that not every single game received the same amount of love when it comes to the Aranthian Succession. A lot of the cult gangs, for example, didn't get support. Same thing with House Delac, for example. They didn't get any new fighters or vehicles for their gang as well. So some people might complain about that fact, but like I said before, just ignore their immaturity and tell them to play or, be quiet. Now, the other thing you got to worry about with the Aranthian Succession is that you do have to worry about narrative gameplay. It is a very narrative-heavy campaign, so if you're not much into narrative gameplay, this might not be the campaign for you. So just keep that in mind in case if that's an issue for you. So let's go ahead and talk about how corpse grinder cults specifically are impacted by the campaign setting. First of all, you get to double the number of champions, which for a corpse grinder cult is absolutely amazing. You actually get to start off with 3 cutters in a gang if you want to, and they actually double the number of cutters that you have, so you can have up to 6 cutters. Now, you do have to deal with the fact that no matter what number of champions you have, you still have to balance out the gang using traditional gang composition rules. So you'll need equal numbers of fighters, of initiatives, and cutters, and butchers, and all kinds of things to kind of balance things out with your skinners and your cutters and your butchers. But having 6 of those guys on the tabletop could be pretty massive with all things considered. At the same time, though, you still have to deal with close combat. A corpse grinder cult gang is almost exclusively close combat based, so you do have to keep that in mind, which could be kind of a pain because if you go out to the Ash Waste, you do have larger ranges as well as larger tables in the Ash Waste, so that could be a little bit more of a handicap for you. Now, with that being said, of course, you do have access to vehicles, which is kind of nice. It's going to help out a lot of the shortcomings that Corpse Grinder gangs had in the past. Before, you only could rely upon your normal movement allowance for your fighters. Now that you have vehicles, you can close the distance towards your enemies. You could do boarding actions using boarding ramps to engage enemy vehicles, all kinds of cool stuff as well. Another thing that Corpse Grinder cults really suffered from was lack of long-range shooting. You could, of course, equip your initiates with harpoon launchers as well as heavy flamers, but those are really close combat, close assault type of range weapons. But now, because you have access to vehicles, you can equip full-blown heavy weapons like mining lasers, heavy stubbers, auto cannons, missile launchers, motors, all kinds of different things. So that part is kind of nice. So you can actually kind of balance out the close combat elements of your gang with some powerful shooting elements as well. And just like always, a Corpse Grinder cult is very aggressive in its playstyle, really up in your face and smashing chain axes to faces, so that hasn't really changed all that much for Corpse Grinder cults, with that being said. Now let's go and talk about alliances real quick. So you are automatically an outlaw gang by being a Corpse Grinder cult, so because of that you can only make outlaw alliances. Now, when it comes to making your alliances, more often than not, what you should do is take a look at how your gang's strengths and weaknesses are tallied up, and you find an alliance that will help address any shortcomings that your gang might actually have. So for example, there's actually a couple of alliances that actually do really well for a Corpse Grinder cult. My personal favorite for a Corpse Grinder cult will be the Narco Lords, and the reason why is for two things. One, you get access to narcotics easier for your gang. Chems like Slot, Frenzon, and Spur are always awesome to help kind of close the distance for your fighters to get to close combat and destroy. At the same time, having access to D3 plus 2 Hive Scum is always a good thing, especially since you're kind of lacking that medium to long range shooting, and those Narco Hive Scum can actually solve that problem for you. So that's something that you want to take into consideration with that alliance. Another really good alliance for the Corpse Grinder cults is the Rogue Victoria, and the reason why is because you have access to black market shooting weapons, which can be really nice to have, especially if you want to look for those more exotic, heavier type weapons for your gang. That could really help out, especially for your initiates, since your initiates can actually use those weapons, so that part's kind of nice. Not to mention, you also have the access to the Worker Party. Now, the Worker Party is not exactly anything to write home about. They're actually kind of lackluster, but having more bodies to throw at your opponents, always a good thing to protect the rest of your more valuable fighters. And lastly, another really good alliance is the Fallen Houses. More often than not, you will be fighting against law-abiding gangs, or gangs are allied with merchant guilds or with noble houses. So if you're looking about trying to generate a lot of income for your gang, the Fallen Houses would also make a really good choice as well. So those are my choices that I would say would probably make the best alliances for the Corpse Grinder cults. Now, when it comes to brutes, hang-arounds, and hired guns, the very first one you always want to get is a Rogue Doc. Rogue Docs are worth their weight in gold, especially if one of your fighters rolls up a critical injury. You could actually have your Rogue Doc patch that person up. Like I said, extremely invaluable. If you decide to go with Chems and using a Chem heavy build with your Corpse Grinder cults, and I highly recommend you do so because Chems could really help out your gang really close the distance towards your enemy, I highly suggest getting a Chem dealer. Now, Chem dealers I believe cost 80 credits to recruit for your gang, but the reason why you want that is because Chems become common items for your gang, so you can access to all those Chems at common rarity, and that's absolutely nice for you to have that as well. Chems are your friends if you decide to be a Corpse Grinder cult. Now, at the same time, you also have access to propagandists as well as agitators. They're also really good for reputation gaining reputation for your gangs, as well as also recruiting people, so that might be something you want to take a look at as well. And when it comes to the brutes, you'll have access to the outlaw brutes, which is a nice mixed bag of all kinds of random crazy things, so that's something you might want to take a look into as well. So now that we're done talking about brutes, hang-arounds, and hired guns, let's talk about your starting roster. So this is my 2,400 point roster for Corpse Grinder cults for the Aranthian Succession. First of all, your leader is going to be a Butcher for 270 credits. This person's got a Butcher's Mask as well as Armor Undersuit and Plate Mail for that 3-up armor save. They have paired Butcher's Chain Cleavers, so they get that additional paired attack as well. You're giving them Photo Goggles so that way they can see in the dark. They automatically come with the First the Fray ability so they can close the distance with their enemies. And you're giving them Commanding Presence so that way they have a larger group activation. After that, you're going to have 3 Cutters. Cutters 1, 2, and 3. They're all equipped exactly the same at 205 credits apiece. They have Cutter's Mask as well as Armor Undersuit Plate Armor for that 3-up armor save, and you're giving them Rotary Flensing Saws, and the reason why is because they have that 4-inch versatile attack, and you really want that, especially with Photo Goggles so that they can see in the dark. They do have Dervish, which gives them 360 degree vision arc with those with their Rotary Flensing Saws, and the skill you're going to give them is Killing Blow. And the reason why I give them Killing Blow is because it doubles the strength, doubles the damage, and allows no armor value whatsoever when you launch a single attack using Killing Blow. And I'll talk about a little bit more about when it comes down to the gang tactics, but you could basically one-shot enemy vehicles, no problem, with those rarely flinching saws. I do apologize, you're actually going to have 4 cutters in this gang. I thought there was only 3, but you actually have 4, so you have 4 of these guys. After that, you're going to have Initiate number 1. This person's going to cost you 235 credits. They have Initiate's Mask with Mesh Armor, so that way they have that 5-up armor save. A Flamer, so that way they can use that flaming template. An Auto Pistol stance upper rounds for strength 4 attacks. Photo Goggles, so they can see in the dark, as well as the Infiltrate skill. Initiate number 2 is going to cost you 205 credits. The Initiate also has Initiate's Mask, as well as Mesh Armor for that 4-up armor save. They have a Harpoon Launcher for that medium to long range shooting, as well as Auto Pistol with Man-Stopper rounds for strength 4 attacks. Photo Goggles, so they can see in the dark, as well as the Infiltrate skill. And after they have Initiative 4 and number 5, they both cost 115 credits apiece. Both will have Initiate's Masks as well as Mesh Armor. They'll also have Moaning Swords and Auto Pistol with Man-Stopper rounds for that close combat goodness, as well as Photo Goggles they can see this dark, and they also automatically come with Infiltrate. Lastly, you're going to have 2 Scum Racers. Scum Racer number 1 and 2, they're both equipped exactly the same at 240 credits apiece. Both will have photo goggles so they can see in the dark, as well as custom medium vehicles with transport beds, boarding planks to add +1 to initiative for boarding actions, tire claws with better handling, as well as nitro burners for faster speed because you're going to want to close a distance with your vehicles. And then lastly, you're going to have a Rogue Dog for 50 credits. It's got a last pistol as well as Medicaid kit, as well as the Medicaid skill in case any of your fighters roll critical injury. Now, the alliance you're going to make on this one is going to be a criminal alliance with the Narco Lords, and the reason why is because of their benefits. First of all, you get the Abundant Supply special rule, which means you have -2 to the rarity of Kims, which makes it a little bit easier for you to purchase that for your gang. At the same time, you also have the Narco Scum, where you will get D3 +2 Narco Hive Scum to help you out at any time in battle. So you'll always at least have 3 of these guys. Hopefully you'll be able to get more, but if not, these 3 will be more than enough. Now for the drawbacks, you do have what's called courier work, which means at the beginning of each battle you have to roll a d6. If you roll a 1 through 3, you must play Dust Town, Dust Up, Gas Harvest, or the Hit as an attacker, so it kind of limits your scenario choices. You also have the payment due drawback, which means you owe D3 times 10 credits at the end of each battle to maintain your alliance, or else you have to test it. Now for your Narco Scum, all 5 Narco Scum are going to be equipped exactly the same way. All 5 will have last guns as well as last pistols for a backup weapon, as well as photo goggles, so that way they can shoot in the dark as well. These guys will be your suppressive element of your gang, shooting at targets from medium to long range with their last guns. And that is pretty much the starting roster that you'll have for this gang. Now let's go talk about your tabletop tactics. You're going to have 4 fire teams in this one. Assault fire team number 1 consists of Scum Racer number 1, your Butcher, as well as Cutter number 1 and 2, and Initiate number 1, who's the guy armed with the Flamer, and Initiate number 3, who's armed with the Boning Sword and Auto Pistol. Assault fire team number 2 will have your Scum Racer number 2, as well as Cutters 3, 4, and those guys will also have Initiate number 2, which is the guy armed with the Harpoon Launcher, as well as Initiate number 4 and 5, which are the guys who are armed with the Boning Swords, as well as the Man-Stopper rounds, or their Auto Pistols. And then of course you'll have your Support fire team number 1, which consists of Narco Hive Scum number 1 and 3, which will basically be always you'll get for your alliance. And if you manage to get the other guys, number 4 and 5, that'll make your second support fire team. Now, depending upon the situation, you can either deploy all of your fighters with their vehicles, or you could have your initiates infiltrate into the battlefield, whichever is the one that gives you the more tactical advantage. The same is also true of your fire support teams. If you have at least a team of 3, but if you can have all 5, then even better for your guys. Just kind of depends how you roll the dice on that one. Now, the tactic is pretty straightforward. You're going to charge towards your enemy as quickly as possible and assault forward. The Narco Scum will be responsible for medium and long range shooting with their last gun, suppressing your enemies, while the rest of your cult just kind of chops your enemies to pieces. Have them swarm your enemies at all sides and try to surround them, as well as just cut them to pieces, because that's what corpse grinder cults do the best. Now, you do have your cutters focus their attentions on enemy vehicles, and the reason why is because they have a skill called Killing Blow. Now, they will trade all their attacks for a single attack when they do this, but this one single attack using Killing Blow will have a single 4-inch ranged attack that will be resolved at strength 5 and 4 damage, because you double the strength and the damage of the attack. And if you manage to hit the attack, they have no armor saves. So if you do this against enemy vehicles, you have the potential to one-shot enemy vehicles and reduce them to slag. Any medium type vehicle, light type vehicle, walker vehicle, that's going to be one shot in most cases with that attack. And you can also do some pretty significant damage against things like Cargo 8 Ridge Haulers, the new Scalavian Explorer Tour that came out for the Prospects, the Taurus Prime that came out for the Palanite Enforcers, or even custom heavy vehicles. You could just slice through a lot of their armor. If you don't manage to get something critical hit on the enemy, you'll definitely cause some damage. And eventually, you do that once, twice, 3 times, that vehicle is going to be slag as well. So because of that, your cutters are the main killers in this gang, and those are the guys you'll be using to target enemy vehicles. Now, as the campaign develops, I would recommend purchasing more photo goggles for your gang so that way they can see in low visibility conditions. So if you do kit a couple of skinners, give those guys photo goggles so that way they can see in the dark. Don't forget to secure chems to assist your fighters as much as possible. Slot and friends on are good, but if you have really low credits, Spur is also nice as well. Spur adds 2 inches to your movement allowance as well as +2 to your initiative, which could be really good as well. And like I said before, recruit a chem dealer, and that's just in case you lose your alliance with narco lords. Who knows what might happen as your campaign develops? You might lose your narco lord alliance, but if you have your chem dealer though, that's your backup supplier because all chems become common items, and you get items through that. You could also get things on consignment where you could actually, get a dose of chems before the battle even starts for free. You'll have to pay this guy later on, but that's something you keep in mind if that should happen with your alliance. Now, don't forget to purchase heavy weapons for your vehicles as well. Weapons with high strength and long range will be invaluable to you as you venture the ash waste. Things like mining lasers and autocannons, for example, would serve you really well. Missile launchers could also work too in most cases. Also, don't forget to equip your gang with cult icons because this will help you with close the distance towards an enemy as well as larger group activations. And remember, always closing with your enemies as soon as possible so that way you can chop them to pieces with chain axes. So in conclusion, upgrading your gang with the Aranthian Succession is a good way to get powerful weapons, war gear, as well as vehicles for your gang as well. And like I said before, always focus on a quality versus a quantity build when it comes to your gangs in the Aranthian Succession. Use those credits to really equip your gang with everything they need to have in order to be successful on the battlefield. And because new material is dropping all the time for Necromunda, keep up to date with the Necromunda journey as I'll be releasing new videos. The reason why I say this is because a lot of the cult gangs did not get support from the Aranthian Succession, but the way that the Aranthian Succession ended narratively, they talk about Hive Secundus, and according to Necromunda lore, Hive Secundus was infiltrated by the Gene Stealer cults. And if I remember correctly, I believe Hive Arcos, which is the hive where the Gene Stealer cult uprising began, I believe it's in that same region of Necromunda. I have to double check, but if that's the case, with Games Workshop kind of teasing that as the next focus of their setting, there might be some really cool cult type stuff for your cult gangs in the future, which would be kind of cool. If they do have those kind of things, I'll be making videos for that as well. So there you guys have it. This is my take on the Cult Grindr cult and the Aranthian Succession. As always, please feel free to like, comment, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is valuable to us as always. Also check us out on Facebook, Instagram, as well as blogger.com for all the latest greatest hobby news related to this channel. That's good for those of you guys. I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace out and stay classy.